Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a senior and accomplished professional and a coach from Gurgaon, India, Mita Chaudhury. Mita, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
Mita is a transformation coach and a social entrepreneur. So, Mita, my first question for you. You speak about the deep connection between personal values and professional success. When did you first realize that leadership is an inner game?
I think I realized it pretty early in my life
Hmm.
that when you are in any role, like leadership role, or when you're starting off, uh, there's some kind of an connect that we are always looking for,
Hmm.
with our colleagues, with our bosses, or even in family. So this connection, I realized, is very internal. We have our own, you like somebody, you don't like somebody, and I think it comes from your own values that you've grown up with.
Hmm.
So hence I always felt that this whole leadership thing is a very internal thing,
Yeah,
and that it has a different definition. That's why for each one of us, how
mm,
you see leadership, maybe for
right.
me it has been more of emotional connect.
Hmm.
And hence I feel that it's about aligning with yourself
Hmm.
internally.
Hmm.
Externally, the world sees us, with our degrees, with our work experience, from
Sure.
where we come.
Hmm.
So, for me, I think that inner space is much more stronger, and I feel that's my powerhouse.
Hmm. Well said.
And that's why I feel that
Well
it is
said.
an inner thing.
Well said. And Mita, was there a turning point when you consciously shifted from being a corporate leader to becoming a transformation coach?
Yeah, Ashutosh, in my life, I believe that nothing is like happening just for the heck of it.
Hmm.
There's always, some meaning. So nothing is not important. So while I started with the Taj Group of Hotels, which was my foundation work,
Hmm.
and I learned many of my management, relationships, all these good things, I learned in my foundation years.
Hmm.
But when I moved to Tupperware, which was a direct selling company, and I kind of continued for 2 decades to be with women, to
Hmm.
see women from different places, different cities, tier 2 cities.
Yeah.
And I realized that the pain that women don't talk about,
Hmm.
which they carry, was my experiential journey started only in Tupperware,
Hmm.
when it became real to see the real people, the
Hmm.
real women, right?
Right.
So I think the pain somewhere became like a purpose to me.
Hmm.
And I never took Tupperware as a job. It was like my own extension. I was trying to figure out my own life.
Hmm.
And I reached out to many more women. I must have recruited over 3 lakh women
Hmm.
at that point of time.
Right.
But I became a coach because I wanted to reach out to many more people.
Hmm.
And doesn't have to be the people I know. So that was one thing, that there's so much of unresolved issues that women carry,
Right.
and emotions that women carry, and that
Hmm.
kind of became my calling, you may say.
Hmm.
And because of that, I have small foundation in Uttarakhand, which I try to help girls to get educated in school.
Hmm.
So yes, I think the pain became my purpose, and hence I thought, uh, if I touch even one life, so in Tupperware it was very, very fulfilling
Hmm.
experience for me to see
Right.
a woman's life change. So yeah, there was a turning point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And how has your own journey of
Hmm.
self belief, trust, and compassion
Hmm.
influenced the way you now guide other women?
Women are naturally masters of self neglect. We don't put ourselves first,
Hmm.
and hence there's a lot of guilt
Yeah.
Like, you have to look after the family, you look after the child first, and you look after this one first. So everybody you look after, but you don't really pay attention to your own
Mm.
needs or what you like to do.
Sure.
So this self belief started only if you do not know yourself, and if you do not respect yourself,
Mm.
you really cannot be authentic in your own leadership role.
Right. Right.
Now, leadership, I believe, is also at home. Any woman who's a homemaker is also a leader,
Mm.
because she'll always be with the family, influencing, the children, how the family should be together. These roles come very naturally to any woman,
Hmm.
So I feel that money played an important role.
Sure.
And this whole thing about, women not feeling free,
Mm.
everybody hates to ask.
Correct.
So my
Correct.
Tupperware journey taught me that, women were suppressed so much
Mm.
that they couldn't ask.
Yeah.
So they were the last ones. So they
Mm.
don't prioritize themselves.
Mm.
So women are born to nurture and love and care and being compassionate. That comes very naturally to them.
Mm.
But they don't have to be apologetic about it,
Correct. Well said. Well said.
right?
Well said.
So yeah.
You
So
al-
I
you also you also said that women in leadership must not carry family guilt just now.
yes.
Why do you think this guilt exists so strongly even today?
Yeah. I think it doesn't go, Ashutosh.
Mm-hmm.
This guilt, doesn't go. So
Hmm.
I think now, when I look back, I feel that I have carried that guilt even today.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many people who makes you realize, that you didn't do this. Your
Mm-hmm.
children will say you didn't attend this parent teachers meeting, you missed it, you
Mm-hmm.
didn't come for my sports day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're surrounded with in-laws who says ki, oh, you're only bothered about your work. So people around us also make us feel guilty,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and you yourself are anyway feeling that guilt, right?
Right. Right.
Because you carry that, and I don't think you can separate it from a woman's this juggling that we do between home and work. So but I can tell that balancing is important. Once
Mm-hmm.
you know how to balance it, don't carry this guilt. You don't have to justify what you're doing. You're also doing it for family to have better holidays.
Mm-hmm.
You are contributing towards the family. So
Sure.
just don't beat yourself down. you know
Absolutely.
yeah.
But then, moving on, how can women begin to reframe work not as a compromise? And I'm not talking of the younger women of today.
Hmm.
How can they work, how can they reframe work not as a compromise, but as a conscious and valid choice that every human being must have the right to make?
It all comes from respecting what you stand for.
Mm.
you know your parents have given you the education, and they wanted you to be independent and all the good stuff, right? You will always have responsibilities, whether you're working or you're not working.
Mm.
Whether it is at home. I know some of my friends, who are like IIMs and IITNs, but she feels guilty that she has not worked,
Hmm.
right? So these responsibilities will always be there.
Right.
But I think it will all begin when she understands what is her strength,
Mhm.
strength, because she brings that strength to the organization as well.
Correct.
So I think that women should not allow this family guilt,
Mm.
to come and overpower her decision making or even at work.
Yeah.
So this is something which I'm seeing more and more, that even the younger generation,
Mm.
they're already carrying that guilt.
Mm.
So what is happening is women are delaying marriages, they are delaying to have children later,
Mm.
because they are also focusing on career right now.
Mm. Well said.
Actually, the time clock doesn't match.
Correct. Correct. Well said. You
Yeah.
also talk about the need for financial independence for dignity and freedom. Tell me, how do you think money can change a woman's relationship with herself? And why do you think it is not just an economic issue, but an emotional and psychological one?
Ashutosh, I believe in the power of purse.
Hmm.
Okay, I have been always an ambassador, right? Because life can throw anything at you.
Right.
And in my case, I lost my father when I was very young,
Hmm.
and I have seen my mother struggle. So, back of my mind, I have been like a promoter that, women have to be financially independent.
Hmm.
And I think I have seen that, money is not evil.
Hmm.
Earning money is not a bad thing.
Sure.
It brings her freedom, it
Yeah.
brings her respect, it brings her dignity.
Hmm.
There is a social element in it. She doesn't have to always carry that how much she's earning like a tag,
Hmm.
but at least she has a freedom of choice.
Correct.
She doesn't have to ask anyone,
Hmm.
whether it is the father, the brother, or the spouse. They may be doing great,
Hmm.
but when it is her own money, she owns it. And let me tell you, most
Hmm.
women,
Hmm.
it's not that when she's earning, she's actually spending on herself.
Hmm.
She's thinking of saving something, she's thinking of buying gifts for the family, friends, and all.
Hmm.
So I think relationship with money is very important for a woman.
Amazing.
And do not feel guilty about earning good.
Absolutely. Good response. Thank you. You also say that women do not need to lose their femininity to
Yeah.
compete.
Yes.
Why is femininity still misunderstood in leadership circles?
Because of, you know, most corporates, I think 80% are men.
Hmm.
And many of them may have seen their mothers at home, looking after the family. So they bring their own belief systems.
Correct.
But femininity is not weakness, is what I want to really talk about.
Hmm.
You know, it is actually an asset for the organization.
Hmm.
Emotions are considered weakness,
Correct.
but
Hmm.
emotions are something which is like an iceberg. Emotions are your basic strength.
Hmm.
Na? So I think that people need to change.
Hmm.
If you are having a child, that child is also very important to that woman who's
Yeah.
coming to work.
Yeah.
But it's not a compromise.
Hmm.
She's damn good as a mother, she's
Hmm.
damn good as a wife,
Hmm.
and she's super good at work.
Hmm.
So I don't think the corporates should look at women as a body.
Hmm.
You have to look at her competence. You have to
Correct.
look what she brings to the table.
Correct.
So family first will always be there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you spoke about emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
Uh, what would leadership look like if emotional intelligence was valued as much as technical competence?
It is so underrated,
Hmm.
this whole emotional intelligence. They most people think it's weakness, but what I have learned, like all your emotions are actually below that surface,
Hmm.
right? Whether it's your love, whether it is your caring, whether it is your fear, whether it's your guilt, whether you are being compassionate, all these are super energized energy.
Right.
But it is dormant right now. We
Hmm.
don't want to look there.
Hmm.
We are only above the sea level,
Yeah.
but what's below is where your strengths are.
Absolutely.
And that's the advantage that people should understand, to
Hmm.
bring out, to complete that leader,
Hmm.
right? To bring out that leader.
Hmm.
But it is not a weakness in my opinion. And whatever I have learned in my 3 decades of work,
Hmm.
I think a true leader is when he shows or she shows her own vulnerability.
True. True.
It's
True.
not the hard head only thinking.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very lopsided leadership if the
Absolutely.
emotional intelligence is not a part of the leadership.
Hmm. Hmm. And can you give me an example of how emotional intelligence can become a leadership advantage
Hmm.
rather than being labeled as softness?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That, all these things that you're talking about, how women are carrying guilt.
Hmm.
Guilt is like a fear, of family abandoning her,
Hmm.
or the company can abandon her. But if you consider that as a strength, I think it's a double edged sword,
Mm.
and it's a double whammy.
Correct.
And I think it is much more complete as a person as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, intellectually, we know what you are capable of. They're
Mm.
all your degrees that you have, I would say, gathered,
Yeah.
you know. But if you're not good with your understanding, which women are very good at, emotional
Mm.
intelligence,
Mm.
because they are born as a nurturer,
Absolutely right.
you
Well said.
know,
Well said. My next
and
question
don't
is,
try to fit in. I think most women are trying to fit in to this whole thing about the masculine,
Mm.
uh, parade that
Mm.
happens. But if you're yourself, let your work speak for yourself,
Absolutely right.
you know. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's important. Very.
Absolutely.
Mm.
But, my next question is, how can women stay authentic without constantly self editing to fit, if I can use the term, masculine leadership norms?
Women are always editing,
Mm-hmm.
at ghar, also at home, you're trying to fit in everybody's request. So she's juggling,
Mm.
so I think we should stop editing
Mm.
to be a complete you.
Mm.
And you don't have to be perfect. There's nothing called a perfect mother, perfect wife,
Correct.
perfect daughter. Oh no, not at
Yeah.
all. So
Correct.
with your imperfections, you are perfect.
Mm.
So don't you're struggling,
Mm.
to be to fit in and to be perfect as a leader, as a colleague at home. You want to be the best wife, you want to be the best mother. So do your best, and I think people see it.
Yeah.
People would see and recognize what you are doing
Mm.
against all odds.
Correct. Correct.
And don't feel small.
Mm.
Don't make yourself uh, feel that you have lost out. We
Right.
make these choices,
Mm.
and we are making these choices, and
Yeah.
be happy with your choice,
Mm. Well
and
said.
just move on.
Well said. You also speak about inner strength.
Yeah.
How does a woman begin building inner strength in such a noisy and demanding world?
Yes. So I think, as I said, women are damn good in multitasking.
Mm.
So noisier the sound, she can think better,
Mm. Mm.
because she can quieten herself.
Mm.
So it is an internal journey, as we started our conversation with. So once you know inner
Mm.
internally that who you are,
Mm.
you're very comfortable with yourself,
Right.
right? And there are no judgments.
Mm.
There are no judgments that we do for ourselves. But to for building inner strength, firstly, you need to master yourself. You
Mhm.
need to know.
Yeah.
You need to know what you're good at,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And you can be very empathetic towards yourself to understand your empathy for others.
Mm.
These things you can create while you are working on yourself.
Mm.
Right? So, building your inner strength is an ongoing process.
Right.
Today, some situation will make you trigger something else.
Mm.
Tomorrow, it will be something else. So, your inner strength comes, I think, more noise makes you kind of funnel yourself
Mm.
down.
Mm.
That funneling happens once you're quiet and you
Well
think.
said. Great response. Um, you also speak about, and I like this phrase, impact what impacts you. Tell me,
Hmm.
what does this phrase truly mean in the context of leadership?
I heard this phrase from
Mm.
Ajay Piramal,
Mhm.
and it stuck to me.
Mm.
No, we go for jobs when we are young. We don't think of these things
Mm.
because we're always running, to achieve something, to be somewhere. And I think this word, what impacts you,
Mm.
you will impact the world accordingly.
Right.
So for me, for example, what impacts me is how can I help the underprivileged
Mhm.
or underspoken or undervoiced people.
Mm.
And I used to feel good even if I went and spoke to a guard
Mm.
or the boy who serves me tea, because I feel he's as important as any one of us.
Hmm.
So I think each one of us must understand what is impacting us
Hmm.
and put that in our scale of leadership.
Hmm.
It's not taught,
Yeah.
it's about how you are feeling towards certain things
Hmm.
more strongly.
Hmm.
And it gives you that little peace, that joy
Yeah.
and that comfort. It
Hmm.
could be like, what impacts you? Oh, you know what? If I'm standing next to a friend who's going through a lot,
Hmm.
that impacts you,
Hmm.
So that is something that you can expand.
Hmm.
And to impact anyone in the corporate world as a leader, you only connect with somebody when your deepest hurt is,
Hmm.
your deepest pain is.
Hmm.
Pain is a big binder, by the way.
Sure. Sure.
So I think that what impacts you truly is what you will impact others.
Absolutely. Meeta, I have time for two more questions.
Yes.
What would you say to a young woman who
Hmm.
feels torn between being present at home and visible at work?
I think change your glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be apologetic about what you're doing. Start balancing.
Mm-hmm.
It'll work out.
Mm-hmm.
And don't carry this guilt because you respect yourself first. And because you respect yourself, you also will respect the work you do. So please start respecting yourself. And also, you were chosen for this job, hence, you matter,
Yeah,
So respect that and feel good about it.
correct.
Yeah. And don't do this whole thing about feeling guilty and, what will I do? These things. As you respect yourself, you know exactly what you're doing and
Absolutely.
you can manage this.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a professional. You can do it.
Hmm. And my last question for you, Meeta. When you
Yeah.
think about leadership that leaves a legacy,
Hmm.
what do you hope women leaders will change for the next generation?
Ashutosh, I have learned one thing in my 3 decades of working that relationship is fundamental, right? And women can do it better.
Hmm.
Hmm? So, women have this tremendous ability to multitask everything, and they have this strong instinct. So, the legacy is you don't have to be masculine to prove yourself.
Hmm.
Build this relationship, connect with people.
Hmm.
When you connect with people, you will realize that you are leaving a legacy.
Hmm.
It's not about the fortunes you leave,
Yeah.
it's about what they speak about you
Hmm.
behind your back.
Correct.
And that can only happen when you have connected.
Hmm.
And you cannot connect superficially for too long, it
Hmm.
doesn't last.
Yeah.
So build relationships with yourself first.
Hmm.
You know, you and me are two different people,
Hmm.
but we have our own ways of connecting.
Hmm.
Maybe it is being trusting, whether it's very emotional, whether it's caring. So
Yeah.
leave your legacy where people talk well about you,
Hmm.
you know.
Wonderful. And on that note, I just want to say, Bita, thank you so much for speaking to me. This has been such an amazing conversation. Clearly, the amount of work you've done, your vast experience is going to be a great guide for women who are 50% of our world, who are amazing
Yes.
workers. Everyone I have worked with has always brought in amazing, not just emotional intelligence, but probably one of the finest work ethics I've ever seen whenever I worked with women. Thank you for speaking to me and good luck to you.
Thanks, Ashutosh.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.